Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso at thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It's your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see here on our channel, on our website, or our social media. It's in the description below. Reach out to tmosso at thewatchbox.com. Today we are discussing the Rolex Oyster Perpetual Cosmograph Daytona stainless steel 40 millimeters. This is the A series, reference 16520. Late 1990s, this is a watch from the Zenith El Primero caliber 40-30 generation that ran from 1988 to 1999, and in many regards the features that were introduced on that 1988 redesign made the Daytona the phenomenon it is today. While certain features such as sapphire crystals or chronometer certifications, screw down crowns, and metal tachymeter scales had been used in the past, it was the combination of all of the features that made the now 40 millimeter automatic Daytona co-equal with the GMT and the sub in the Rolex Pantheon. The features that arrived in 1988 included a sapphire crystal on all models, metal tack on all models, 100-meter water resistance and screw-down crown on all models, chronometer certification on all models, 40 millimeter case with automatic winding on all models. And the Daytona that you see here, fascinating in that it looks just like a recent production Rolex Daytona. This could be a 2015 by all rights, unless you know to look, for example, for the location of the constant seconds on the dial. So when you wear a Daytona of this generation, you're really getting a modern day watch that is also a vintage timepiece. It's both simultaneously. Now the watch is 40 millimeters in diameter by 12.4 millimeters thick by 47 millimeters lug-to-lug by 50.5 millimeters end-link to end-link with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. You can see the watch is comfortable, and on the wrist it sits low. It's a viable sports watch, dress watch, and suitable for a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference. It's on its original Rolex 78390A Oyster bracelet. And you can see there are only a few subtle cues that this is not a modern Rolex Daytona. The satin finished lug hoods, for example, which would be polished on a 6-digit. But the bracelet is very much modern spec in terms of finish: polished centers, satin finished edges. You can see polished outer faces, removable links fixed by screws. We have solid end links, but we do have hollow center links. There's a little bit of the old Rolex charm to this clasp and bracelet combination. Of course, you have straight through polish on this generation of the clasp, and there are several divots drilled inside, so you can re-anchor the bracelet inside the clasp with your strap tool. The bracelet retains outstanding structural rigidity and integrity, as sharp as the day it left Geneva back in 1999. Now the watch does include screw-down crowns. You can see a Rolex trip-lock crown, 100 meters water resistant. There's a tachymeter scale that doesn't actually feature kilometers or miles, so your choice. You use it in conjunction with the chronograph seconds hand to gauge the speed of an object, such as a racing car, between the start and stop of a fixed course, generally a standing mile or kilometer. The dial is black lacquer with silvered individual registers. Each one features a polished chaptering, then concentric circular guilloche on the metallic scales inboard. The shock of red Daytona vaulted and tracing the chronograph hours down at 12 o'clock. The hands, the crown, all the indices are white gold to resist tarnish and oxidation over time. And as you can see, this is a Luminova generation dial, the last of the dial variants on this generation of Daytona. The case back, as ever with the Rolex Oyster, is solid. And underneath that is a Rolex caliber 4030, which was a Zenith El Primero, highly modified by Rolex engineering. It was built in Le Loc by Zenith in a special room dedicated to El Primeros modified for Rolex, and it also helped to constrain the production of these watches. Zenith's production constraints during the 90s were the #1 reason why this watch was often waitlisted, because in the in-house caliber area, Rolex can make as many caliber 4130 Daytonas as it wants, but in the 90s, Zenith had the Rolex project, it had other movements that were supplied to other brands. It had movements that it set aside for its own El Primero chronographs, so it was really splitting its El Primero production at least 3 ways, and that keeps these watches scarce. Now, technically speaking, it's an impressive movement, though it's not obviously the Zenith El Primero. For one, the beat rate was tuned down for durability from 36,000 vibration per hour to 28.8, as Rolex more commonly uses. In other ways, the movement was tuned up. It does not feature a date, but it does feature upgrades including a Breguet overcoil hairspring made by hand, a free sprung regulator, 5-position adjustment, a revised winding system for greater durability, and of course a COSC chronometer certification. The watch does not feature hacking. That would be a feature of the later in-house calibers, but it does feature a column wheel and lateral clutch arrangement that makes for a very crisp actuation, and of course it remains a 31 jewel base as with the original El Primero. It is a highly modified caliber that's best thought of as Rolex's own caliber, albeit built by Zenith with many of the finest underlying structural features of the El Primero. If you love this watch and you want to get your foot in the door of vintage Rolex, again, these watches now over 2 decades old are beginning to qualify while remaining everyday wearable and even swimmable. Email tmosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. And we're back with the A-Series Rolex Daytona.